So what if we've got this story all wrong? Like, what if that last guy in the story, the one who hides his talents, his money, instead of investing it and gets thrown out into the darkness where there is wailing and gnashing of teeth? What if he's the hero of this story and the one who got it right? And what if those other characters, the one that returned with more than they started with, and even the master himself are the bad guys? I propose we might have this gospel all wrong. So first, please know that the word talent as used here does not refer to talents as we think of them. A good singing voice, skills on their soccer field, brilliance on math and in the classroom. No, a talent is a very, very large sum of money. And for the average Jewish person, there would be nothing, no kind of a bank institution of any kind that could return the kind of investment they received back. You have to think, the only thing I could imagine is that they somehow used their wealth, their power, their position to extort money somehow, which happened all the time there, from those who were already vulnerable. The last guy, then, is the one who refuses to do that. He's going to act with integrity. And for that, he suffers greatly. He speaks the truth to the master, and he pays a price for it. He says, "Master, I know that you're a hard man, and that you reap what really you didn't sow, which isn't yours." The master doesn't argue. He goes, "You're right. That's exactly the kind of person I am and exactly what I do. Lock this guy up. Throw him out where there's wailing and gnashing of teeth." The good news is, unlike what we sometimes tend to think, God is nothing like that master. God is not the one who throws someone out for refusing to do what is unjust. No, God is the one who, after this guy is in the darkness somewhere, hunts for him, finds him, loves him into healing. That is what God is like. That's the God I know. Maybe you felt times of loneliness and darkness like that guy felt. We all have those times. As I look back at the tough times in my life, it's not as easy to see in the moment sometimes, right? But it's clear to me that God was never the one who shoved me into the darkness, but rather who hunted me there, met me there, loved me back to life. I really think we get God all wrong. And the much more important question, as many spiritual writers would say, is not whether or not you believe there is a God or I believe there is a God. It is, what do we believe that God is like? Now repeat that. Much more important than whether or not we believe there's a God is, what do we believe that God is like? So much of what we believe God is like, we get growing up from those who have authority over us. Parents, teachers, priests, people in leadership roles. What I would say is the best qualities in any of them is a glimpse of the amazingness of God. Here's the part we sometimes forget. Those worst parts of them, God is nothing like that. And this is where we really got to use our heads. Because usually the wounds and the limitations of those with authority over us, they distort our image of God. It is really hard to get God right. For example, if we grew up with someone who was abusive, demanding, alcoholic, absent, angry in one moment, and berating us and then loving us in the next. If we did grow up with anything like that, we usually fear a vengeful God who will throw us out in the darkness if God thinks we messed up, or believe that God sends suffering to punish us or to bring some good out of it. This is why you had this suffering. Or we believe that we will never measure up. We'll just never be good enough for that God. Or we doubt that God could ever truly, personally care for us just as we are. Pretty much all of us have grown up with at least a mildly distorted image of God. That's why the 12th century mystic Meister Eckhart said, we have to let go of God in order to find God. In other words, we have to work to let go of those old images, which sometimes are not cerebral, they're visceral, so we might meet who God truly is. Over the years, I have had to rethink God. I think it is the work of all of us as we grow up. And there's a number of ways to do that. One of the best ways is to look at those glimpses of goodness we've been blessed to see in others, right? My mom, for all of her wounds, had this deep compassion for the underdog and the poor. That was the glimpse of God for me. Wherever we find goodness, even in our own hearts, I believe that's about the closest thing we will ever know on earth to what God is like, that human goodness. So, I'd recommend that. And I'll end with a story that at a tough time in my life, someone told me. I might have told a few of you this. He swears it was true, and he thought it would help me keep perspective at this time. This was many years ago. He said, once a little boy was sitting at his desk in the second grade classroom when suddenly he's aware that there's a puddle between his feet and that the front of his pants was wet. He was so embarrassed. He had never wet his pants before. He was just mortified. So he prays, please God, I need help. He looks up to see a classmate named Susie who's carrying the class goldfish bowl of water down the row of decks that he's in. She trips and dumps pretty much most of the bowl of water on the kid's lap. Now, he pretends to be upset, but on the inside, he's saying, thank you, Jesus, thank you. Because now, instead of being the object of ridicule, he's the one who receives affection and care and kindness. Instead, Susie is the one that's considered the klutz and sometimes gets teased for that. After school, she's standing all by herself. He walks over to her and whispers, you did that on purpose, didn't you? And she whispers back, I wet my pants once too. That man told me rightly that is what God is like. That is what God is like. My suffering, your suffering is never because God threw us out into some darkness somewhere. But instead, like Susie, in Jesus, God enters into our suffering with us, taking on everything, our loneliness, our shame, even death. So, maybe here's the reflection. Who has ever loved you like that? Whoever helped you when you were sick, stood by you at a scary time, absorbed some pain on your behalf. Or maybe it's just some goodness you witnessed someone doing to others, or even in your own heart. In that, you got a glimpse of the very goodness at the heart of God. And thank goodness, God is so much more loving than we imagine.